Hello and welcome back to the KCC channel. I'm Rob and today we'll be jumping into ProRevenge. Before we start, please hit that subscribe button and click the notification bell so you know when the next video goes live. Our first story today comes to us from Minotaur 2. Can't pay for gasoline? Pay $1,000 for repairs instead. Let's jump right in. Backstory. This happened in the 90s right after I had moved out of my dad's house after college. I was broke and in search of a job. My brother, who owns a local mechanic shop, helped me find a job and a place to live in the area. The place I lived was in a cramped trailer park, but I did have a small patch of grass that needed mowing. Also, the place had poor heating and cooling. I had to install my own window unit and use a kerosene heater for heat. Not a good idea, by the way, but it's what was available and it was indoor rated surprisingly. My neighbors, we'll call Josh and Anna again, are the type that have a nice expensive car despite not being able to afford power, food, etc. But who am I to judge? The car? A Ford Thunderbird Super Coupe. Round 1. It's getting springtime and my weeds are starting to grow, so I get a small power mower, a gas jug, and some gas. I mow my yard in about 5 minutes. Done. Next week I come out and my grass jug is empty. Well, crap. Round 2. It's week 2 of mowing season and I go to get some gas. This time I get less, and before I put the jug up, I place a small handwritten note on it. Attention gas thief, contains water. No, it didn't really, but I was testing a theory, and yep, they stole the gas anyway. At this point, I still wasn't sure if it was actually them or not, but I was about to find out. Round 3, mortality. It's now 4 weeks into mowing season. At this point, it's warmed up. My new shiny 220 volt AC unit is humming in the living room, and I no longer need my kerosene. I take my gas jug and my kerosene jug, get some gas and kerosene, mow my yard, put my gas jug just inside my door, and leave my very full bright blue kerosene jug next to my mower. He took it. The fallout. Anyone who works on cars knows that a gasoline-powered engine will not run on kerosene. So yeah, he didn't make it much further than the top of the hill. The best part is that the warranty did not cover the damage done by using the wrong fuel. And to fix it, the tank had to be drained, the lines had to be drained, the filter changed, and new fuel injectors installed. Josh ended up paying my brother over $1,000 to fix his car. I think my favorite part was walking by Josh later with my empty kerosene jug, mumbling about why would someone steal my kerosene in warm weather. He never admitted he did it. He never stole my gas or kerosene again. Finally, he learned. Or found a new victim. So what I've gathered from the comment section is that basically you could put whatever you want into a container. As long as it's labeled properly, it covers your butt. It's their problem whether they put it in their car or not. I probably would have filled the container with soap and water. Just strip that engine of every little bit of lube it's got, just for fun. Our next story today comes to us from D. Kaplinger. So my work isn't good enough, eh? Let's jump right in. During my last year of my career as a cop, I spent the majority of it on light duty due to medical issues that hit me out of nowhere. I knew the sheriff was gunning for me anyway, so I decided to have some fun. See, I was the chief of the court division of the sheriff's office. Also, I was assigned as our member investigator to our regional internet crimes task force. As part of my work for the department, I volunteered to be the webmaster for their site. I put a lot of work into it, but I finally had it working. Then they wanted me to add a new set of features to it that would allow deputies to log in and post events occurring during their shift, so that supervisors had an up-to-date record of all that was going on. There was a similar system in a neighboring county that they wanted it modeled after. There were some slight issues though. The code base for the other county site was written in C++ and operated on a Windows-based server, while ours was a Linux server. Take a guess at who was qualified as an expert in the courts regarding computer forensics of Linux-based file systems and operations. Why, yours truly, of course. The sheriff of the other county was all too willing to provide me with the complete codebase that their designers had used. He knew we couldn't use it right off, so he had no problems with it. Now, for what they wanted, I could have done nothing but coding from dawn to dusk for 3 months solid, but I did it in 3 weeks, and not only had matched what the other system could do, I also built in a feature where a deputy could alert people on other shifts of events that happened so they could be in the know, as well as fully compliant email interface with MS Exchange, allowing staff to send emails back and forth without having to leave the system. A great deal of the work I put into coding that site I did from home off the clock. I told them I could get it done in less than 3 months, and I wasn't going to disappoint them. The day came. Ta-da! Oh, wait, they didn't really think I could do it. They were hoping for me to fail to give them a reason to fire me. The next day, my lieutenant comes up to my workstation and told me to come with me. I had gotten so tired of him trying to find a way to get me fired. I actually said, "What did I do wrong this time?" He responded with, "You'll see." When we got to the door to enter the non-public area of the sheriff's office, we soon passed his office and instead went straight to the sheriff's office. He asked me for the web hosting details. I was hosting it for free on my server, as well as the ownership of the domain names. Obviously, even though I had control of both were the property of the sheriff's office. My sheriff, who only a couple months earlier was praising my name because I developed a site using the colors and fonts chosen for the designs on the patrol cars, said, "We're going to switch to a different webmaster. We want someone more professional." Obviously, I could not see my face, but the way I felt, I think my head did a complete 360, like in The Exorcist. I was so offended by his statement, I kind of went into a trance. I had owned and operated a web hosting and design company for at least 8 to 10 years before I took over the department's site. I was a professional website developer. No one could have built them the custom site they requested as quickly as I did. I worked at least 40 hours at home off the clock on the project and was highly praised by the sheriff for the work. Yet only a few weeks later, he wanted someone more professional? He wasn't fooling me. Fine, cue my ProRevenge. Not long before I was asked to build the new features for the website, one of my staff came to me, eyes down, to confess something he had done. He wasn't tech savvy, but one day he did a search and found a domain name was available for purchase. It just so happened to be the domain name the sheriff had used for his first campaign less than 4 years earlier. Apparently, no one thought to check to see the status of the domain as the new election approached. Once he told me, I promised him I'd take care of it. So I got access to the registrant account to change the name servers to an anonymous host. I learned from my computer crimes contacts the sheriff was trying to use federal officers to try to trace me to find out who was doing what with his domain. Well, good luck with that. I was proxied from hell and back, using 7 hops through 3 providers and on the Tor network. Every time I logged into the website I was building, there was no way to trace who was doing it. The sheriff knew my coworker had purchased the domain, but that was the limit of his involvement. So it's important to note the sheriff had to resign in disgrace and accepted a plea deal to plead guilty to a couple of federal felonies. Who blew the first whistle of issues going on in the department? We did. Even better, without realizing it. For most of his second campaign, all of his signs still had the original website listed. The website listed all the factual things the sheriff or his minions were doing that were unlawful, immoral, or unethical. I only listed the stuff I could independently verify through 2 other sources. My staff and I were the first people to contact the state and the FBI regarding illegal activities being perpetrated in the sheriff's office. The command staff resigned and ran like roaches once the news came out the sheriff had been charged. I guess he should have hired someone more professional to handle his PR. In the end, he still won the second election, but wasn't able to carry out his full term due to the crisis he was facing from his own past. Here I am, a retired law enforcement officer, still developing modern websites as a professional website designer. He could have gotten away with it all if he hadn't decided to try and screw me over with the whole internal web system. Speaking of that system, even though they pleaded with me to make it for them, it was never implemented. For the record, I often checked to see if the website had been changed. Even years after I retired, my website was still up in its entirety, without a single modification. This meant it still showed my name and photo on it for details on the court division. I've had people tell me being assigned to the courts does not amount to much. Obviously, they never walked a mile in my shoes. Have we really not learned yet not to screw over the IT guy? I feel like if I got a job in IT, I would just randomly every once in a while send one of these stories through to my boss just to remind them of how important the IT people are. Our last story today comes to us from Story Skeller. Park in a private space and block an entrance? Pay the fines and the damages. Let's jump right in. This incident happened in the summer of 2018. I took a small part, but the real star was my landlord. A small background. It's common in my country to have apartment buildings next to houses, yard and all. I lived in one such building. It has 10 apartments, 2 on each of the first floors, 1 in the ground floor, and 1 in the top floor. The top floor is used by the landlord when he and his family come for vacations. He lives abroad. The rest are rentals. We also have a small backyard with a side entrance, important for later. Next to the building is an empty lot, also belonging to the landlord. We use it as private parking space with signs visibly saying it's private. It takes 10 cars, 1 per apartment, and has the side entrance. Also, I was the longest tenant, so I was the superintendent. My job was to be the liaison between the tenants and the landlord and communicate any problems and concerns to him. The problem started when the house across the street from us was sold. A lovely old lady used to live there, but when she passed away, the house fell on disarray, especially the large yard. The new owners were Ken and Karen, fake names but lived up to the meme. They immediately began major renovations, which was acceptable, but they also started to park their cars in our 2 empty spots, one for the landlord and one for the lady in the ground floor that didn't own a car. At first, we would tell they were reserved spots and they would move their cars, but then they noticed the spots remained empty. They parked there permanently. I had notified the landlord and he told me to take pictures, log every incident, and always notify the police. We started doing that every day. Ken is a hotshot local businessman, and every time we called the cops would cause a scene about us being jerks. He always got a fine, but he very blatantly proclaimed he will not pay. The worst part came about a month before the landlord's annual visit. They stopped using one of their cars and left it permanently in front of the side entrance, blocking it. This was a huge issue. You see, the lady living in the ground floor is a renal dialysis patient and 3 times a week goes for a session in the local hospital. The ambulance brings her back and usually parks next to the side entrance because she is exhausted after a session. With Karen's car parked there, that wasn't doable anymore. They don't move it even when the police are called. I notify the landlord and try to hold our own hothead from doing anything foolish. The calmer thing he proposed was slashing their tires. Finally, our landlord arrives. I hand him the photos and the logs and he calls Ken over. Tony, the landlord, calmly explains that they are not allowed to park in our space and to move the cars. Ken's response was, "Who the hell do you think you are? I can park anywhere I want." Now, Ken thinks of himself as a big fish in our small town, but Tony is a big fish in a major foreign city, and he is very creative when somebody pisses him off. He tells us to leave the spot next to the side entrance open for the weekend, and he will take care of things. We do that, and Ken parks his car next to his wife's. Sunday evening, a tow truck arrives and unloads an old Citroen DS, also known as the Frog, blocking both of their cars. Monday morning, I wake by the buzzer, and when I go downstairs, Ken and Karen are there. They are both livid. They can't move either car. Tony joins me, all smiles. Ken sees him and blows a gasket. He starts shouting and cursing. Tony, still smiling, replies, "I don't see a problem. My car is legally parked. What are you going to do about it?" Ken angrily gets into his car and reverses on the DS, crushing them both. Tony's smile became one of a shark. He immediately called the police. He pressed charges against Ken. The aftermath. Tony had legally bought the DS from his cousin that owns a car repair and restoration shop. The car was a restoration project and was insured. The court found Ken liable for the damage done. They also found out he was true to his word and hadn't paid any of the tickets. The fines for the tickets alone were almost 2,000 euros. He also leased both his cars, and they dropped him as a client immediately for purposely causing an accident and damaging the leased car. They're sued for damages. Ken got another car, but learned his lesson and hasn't parked in our spots ever since. Now, I used to work for a tow truck company, and I know that if somebody's parked in a lot where they shouldn't be and it's clearly marked as no trespassing or no parking, you can just call a tow company and they'll take that car away, put it in their impound lot, and that person will have to pay to get it back out. Where I worked, it was $60 per day to be in the impound lot, plus the tow fee. It added up really quickly. Thank you to all 3 OPs for posting their stories in the ProRevenge subreddit. They are linked in the description down below. Please go check them out. Check out one of these other videos, and if you haven't yet, please hit that subscribe button for more daily Reddit stories.